Should you subcontract with agencies to get leads for web design? Let's talk about that. In fact, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be getting into a series where we talk about a variety of different things that people do to try to generate leads for their web design business. Some are better than others. We'll talk about the pros and cons of each. And today, let's talk about maybe you have a half dozen relationships with a few agencies that send some work your way. Is that going to be a good idea? And for me, I think the answer is kind of maybe. It depends on the long-term implications of what you're trying to do. Like if this is just like a quick way to generate some leads for now, I feel like that's a pretty decent idea. If it's something that you're looking to really build a business around, I don't think it really holds water. So let's talk about why. The biggest one is you're going to need to expect that you have to decrease your rates over time. And I hear this all the time. For example, I was just talking to someone who for 3 years had a relationship with this web design or with an ad agency, and she was doing the web design. And she gets a call from the agency, and they're like, hey, can you lower your rates because we are lowering what we charge for websites. So the agency was having a really hard time landing clients at the prices that they used to charge for websites. So they were going to lower their rates, meaning that she had to lower hers as well. Otherwise, there was no profit margin and she couldn't keep the job, right? So she spent all this time building up her skills. She's done a great job meeting all the deadlines, great relationship. And now instead of getting a raise, she has to lower her rates because the agency is lowering their rates. And if she can't lower her rates, then she doesn't get the work at all, and they'll just send the work to someone who can do it for cheaper. So I think it's important to understand that problem is out there if you feel like you're going to build your business around subcontracting with agencies. Now, if it's just something you're doing to kind of get a start and you need a couple of quick leads coming in just for now, okay. But the danger of that is, when do you stop, right? So like, when do you stop focusing on doing subcontracting work for agencies? Because the next problem is, if that's what you're doing, like say you have 5 or 6 relationships with agencies, they send you overflow work, then you're still not really in control of your leads, right? So like they're in control of the leads. So you're still going to have the feast or famine problem. You're not fixing the lead flow problem. You're just moving it. You're just pushing it out a level. So, for example, like if you've got a lot of ad agencies that you work with, well, they send a ton of ads around the holidays and they don't really do too much advertising in the summer. So you're going to still have that big feast or famine wave coming through, and that's going to be a problem. And I was in this situation. Like when I started doing web design, like back in 2002, my main source of leads was from other agencies, but it was different back then because none of the ad agencies had anyone who could build a website. In fact, it was hard to build a website. In fact, just to host a stupid thing, you had to have like a computer science degree. Like it's like the difference between what it was like back then versus where it is now, where you just point and click your way and anybody can build a website with like a month of training or whatever. I think you're going to be hard pressed to find agencies that don't have web designers already in the mix. So that's going to be a problem. And the overall lead flow issue is something to really consider, because you think, okay, well, I'm getting all these leads from these agencies. What if it's too much? And I say no, and then they find someone else to replace me. Like, are they just going to come back to me when I'm more available? Or are they just always going to go with the other person? And, are they going to then fire the other person when I'm available again? That seems unlikely. So it's like, you don't really ever want to say no because you don't want to lose the relationship. So then you just deal with it. You just get swamped and it's very stressful. So the lead flow issue doesn't get solved simply by working for agencies in the sense of the feast or famine cycle. So that's a big problem to think about too. The biggest problem, I think, is that you're not leveraging your knowledge. Now, the value is not really in your time or your skills. There is value in your time and your skills, but the real value is the knowledge itself. And what I mean by the difference, let's look at the difference. So a web designer who will oftentimes provide free consulting as part of like the onboarding process, right? Like, don't you ever meet with your clients and kind of go through this strategy session and figure out, what they actually need to do and kind of do all the consulting just to get the client for free, only to find that you're building like a $1,500 website on the other side. And maybe that's even too much for them. And so they just take all your free consulting and find somebody to do it all for less or whatever. So rather than that, wouldn't it be better to kind of flip the whole thing? So rather than being a web designer who offers free consulting, why not be like a marketing consultant who also builds websites? And that will allow you to really maximize your earning potential because you can maximize your knowledge of what needs to be done. What's the strategy behind it? You're not just being an implementer, you're really being a creator of value. And the difference in price is like, well, if you're just a web designer doing free consulting, you're probably making like $1,500, $2,000, something like that. If you're a marketing consultant who can also implement the stuff you're consulting about, you're looking at like $15,000, $20,000 projects. So like order of magnitude larger. So you're leaving like 10 grand on the table if you aren't leveraging your knowledge. And most web designers that I talk to severely undervalue their knowledge. So that's a big one. Then you want to think about, well, what value am I putting into my business itself? Like as I continue to build this thing out, where's the real value? And I think a lot of people overlook that. So like if you ever had an idea that you want to like sell the business later, right? So you want to build the business with value and then sell it in 10 years from now or something like that. You want to look to see where the value is. Is the value simply in you? Like what happens if you remove yourself from the business? Does the business still have value? And if you're subcontracting with agencies, almost all the value is going to be your relationship with the agency owner. And if you remove yourself, that pretty much takes all the value out of the whole business anyway. So by doing the whole subcontracting thing, especially as like a long-term strategy for kind of establishing your business, you're not really building a business. You're just freelancing your time. And those are two different things. There's nothing wrong with freelancing your time. Just be aware that you're not building a business that has value that can sell. There's no recurring revenue. There's nothing that really differentiates you from anyone else other than your relationship. So therefore, all the value is in you personally. There's really no projected growth. You might have to decrease your rates like we just talked about. So that's important to note. Another one is I really do feel like the window is closing on this whole concept of subcontracting with agencies in terms of building a sustainable business, because the price rates are just dropping and it's so easy to be replaced, right? So for example, what happens if the agency, gets more web designers internally or hires a full-time employee? What happens if that happens? Or what if they find someone who they can outsource cheaper or something like that? But here's one to really think about more than maybe any of the others. Is sometimes when people say, man, I'm tired of working for this other company. I don't want to just be told what to do all the time. There's kind of this, almost kind of like this rebellious part, like I've got that too, right? It's like, you just want to like stick it to them. I got my own business. I can do this. But really, if the way that you build it is just by being a subcontractor for other agencies, you're kind of sticking it to yourself, right? Because you're not getting any health insurance. You're not getting a 401k. You're not getting paid time off. You're not getting any of the benefits of actually being an employee of the agency. You're just selling your time to them outside of all those other benefits. And so you're kind of you're not sticking it to them. You're kind of sticking it to you. Like why would you do that, right? It's like, that's not really, I don't think that's really the goal that you're shooting for when you think, yeah, I'm gonna break out on my own. I'm gonna do this myself. I'm gonna really get great results for my clients. I'm really gonna do this awesome stuff, because you're not really even interacting with the clients, right? Like your clients are the agencies, and the real clients are the clients of the agency, like the real people that need the actual results. You really probably don't interface with them very much at all. So in that context of thinking, oh yeah, I want to do a better job for my clients. I really want to get results for people. I want to have my own business with value. All of those things really fall flat if all of your leads are coming in from other agencies because you're subcontracting with them. So I don't really feel like subcontracting with agencies is a strong position for building your own web design business, even though you can kind of get some quick leads right off the spot. So take it for what it's worth. My advice after having been doing this for almost 20 years is, if you need to kind of just get a boost, kind of getting started, and you want to get some agencies sending work your way or whatever as sort of something to maybe fill the gaps, I think that's probably a pretty decent idea, especially if you keep in mind all the things we just mentioned. But as a long-term approach and actually building a business with value where you're in control of your leads, you're getting results for your clients, you're building a business that actually has value inside of the business itself, it's not really where you want to be long-term. So my big chunk of advice, and we'll be hitting at this on various angles, my advice is take control of the future of the business by figuring out, how can I differentiate myself? How can I build recurring revenue into the business? How can I make sure the business has value even if I remove myself from it? So those are some of the questions that you want to be asking yourself when building your own web design business. And if you want to talk about it one-on-one, we can do that too. You can head on over to doublestack.net/call. You'll see my calendar pop up, and we can talk about whether or not the lead generation ideas that you're pursuing are really going to get you to where you want to be. And if not, we can maybe come up with some other ideas. So head on over to doublestack.net/call. We'll get on the phone for about 45 minutes and you can figure out, what's the best way to generate leads for you and what prices do you want to be charging and what kind of clients do you want to be working with, and do you want to niche down into a specific segment and really become an authority there? And if so, I can help you figure that out. So go ahead and pick a time that works for you over on my calendar at doublestack.net/call. And then I'll call you at the time that you selected. We'll get on the phone for 45 minutes and talk about what should you be saying on your website and what should your pricing be and how do you package together your services in a way that not only allows you to get paid to implement everything that you're building, but you also start generating recurring revenue from that. And how do you communicate those prices, especially if you're going to be leveraging the value of your knowledge in addition to the value of your skills? If you want to literally 10x the rates that you're charging, from 1,500 to 15,000, how do you communicate that? Because that can be kind of tricky. So head on over to doublestack.net/call, pick a time that works for you. I'll give you a call at that time and we'll get all this stuff ironed out. It's awesome. See you there and I'll talk to you soon.